big, wonderful God. A great, big, wonderful God. Oh, what a glory it is to sing praises to the coming King. Great, big, wonderful God. Our great, big, wonderful God. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Now everyone sing it with us. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
Okay.
Here, this side's going to go to that side.
Okay.
No, I don't know which one goes to which, just like it. Okay, I'm going to do the best I can do today. I don't have any voice, but I'll do the best I can do.
You may be down and feel like God has somehow forgotten that you are faced with circumstances you can't get through. Right now it seems there's no way out and you're going under. But God's proven time and time again, He'll take care of you. And He'll do it again. He'll do it again. You'll just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. Well, hasn't He always come through for you? He's the same now as then. And you may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. God knows the things you're going through, and He knows how you're hurting. You see, He knows just how your heart has been broken in two. But He's the God of the stars, of the sun and the seas, and He is your Father. He can calm the storm and He'll but he'll do it again. Oh, he's still God, and he'll never change. Oh, yes, he's still God, and he's fighting for you. Oh, yes, he's still God, and he's fighting for you. Oh, just like Moses, just like Daniel, just like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, he'll do it again. Yes, he'll do it again. You'll just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. Well, hasn't he always come through for you? He's the same now as then. And you may not know how, and you may not know when. Oh, you may not know how, you may not know when. You may not know how, you may not know when, but he'll do it again. He'll do it
Do we have any other specials this morning? If not, do we have any testimonies before we turn the services over to Clint?
Praise God, I'll testify how good God is. He said he'd never leave us, he said he'd never forsake us, even to the end of the age.
Amen.
On Friday night, I know Steve and I said a couple words about it a while ago. On Friday, a meteorite went between the earth and the moon at 56,000 miles an hour. I read the article on the meteorite, and all of the investigations, all the surveillance that we have, that's one they didn't have numbered. And they said that there are so many out there that could hit the earth. Well, one did hit the earth. It's on my little iPhone this morning. It was in India, in a rice paddy, where people were harvesting rice. And it only weighed 33 pounds, but it created a crater in the earth, huge. And they said, had that one the other night, and it hit the earth, it could destroy a city the size of Los Angeles with that kind of force. Now just think about it. We're here on this earth, and the seismologists, the asteroid followers all said that we've been hit before and we're going to be hit again. And it might destroy all of the population on the face of the earth. Think about it. God protects this earth with a shield called gravity that burns up everything that comes into our atmosphere to protect the earth. And God protects us with the fire of the Holy Ghost. He burns out all of that which threatens to destroy us. And I thank God for it this morning, that He's our protector, He's our provider, He's our strength, and all He asks of us is faithfulness.
Yes.
That's all. Faithful is His word. God that I can be here this morning with all the aches and the pains and the groans. But thank God, the journey is not over. And whenever I get to the end of that journey, I know that He is going to be with me because He has been with me all of these years on the ups and downs. We got a daughter that's driving 4 or 5 other people with a trailer full behind them, coming from back east. And I thank God that we can believe that God's protection is upon us in our journey. And He said, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. Just think about what a promise that is. Now, Clint's preaching this morning, so I'll shut up. But I thank God. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Do we have any other testimonies? If not, then I'll turn the services over to Clint.
I want to start out this morning with a little bit of testimony of my own. It was a week before last. I was struggling a little bit, just a day-to-day life, figuring out what the next step was, what I was doing at work, and everything like that. And I spent a lot of time that week in prayer. And one day after work, I just came home and turned on the TV. I was just watching a stupid TV show. And there was an answer, a very direct answer for me, just in a dumb TV show. And I truly believe that God answers our prayers, and I believe in signs and miracles and wonders as a way of His answering our prayers. And I believe if we listen that God talks to us.
Amen.
And that was a really prime example for me. There was a TV show, it was an episode that involved a young minister in church, actually. And he was talking about Noah. And that kind of got the wheels turning in my head. And I spent a few days after that just kind of pondering a little bit on the story of Noah. And the conclusion that I came to in thinking about that was that really the Bible, it's a history of second chances. The Bible is a history of do-overs. It's a history of man failing. It's man's failures and God's forgiveness over and over and over.
Amen.
Over thousands and thousands of years.
Amen.
From the beginning to the end, that's what you read about in the Bible. Mankind gets another chance. We mess it up because we are imperfect, because we are sinners, because we were given free will. And then God steps in and He gives us another chance. So I find it very appropriate, Lou's song this morning. He'll do it again, because I think that fits right in with the message that I think I have this morning. So on that note, I actually want to start out with reading about Noah. So we turn to Genesis, the 6th chapter. going to start with the beginning of the 6th chapter of Genesis. I'm going to start us off with kind of a long reading this morning. I want to go up through the 9th chapter, the 19th verse. So Genesis in the 6th chapter. And it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same become mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. I know a few times before I've read other translations and given my message, and this particular verse really speaks to me. In the New American Standard Version, it's just put into some more modern language. At 6th verse of the 6th chapter, the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. God regretted creating us, and he was heartbroken. Went on to the 7th verse. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air. For it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant. And thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah. According to all that God commanded him, so did he. I want to pause there for a minute, because when I was thinking about this, it came to me that most of the time, I think, when we hear about the story of Noah and the history of this portion of his life and this portion of mankind's history, I think a lot of times messages revolving around that focus on really that chapter, the 6th chapter, which is a lot about God telling Noah what to do. And we use Noah as an example of faith in God, as well as obedience. He's given very specific instructions. He told him, this is what's going to happen, and if you are faithful and obedient to me, this is what you will do. And in return, I will make a covenant with thee. But in this time reading this, I approached it a little bit differently, thinking about what I was reading. Not just that, there's obviously that message there and that importance to that part of this message, that we are to follow God's commandments. We are to be obedient and faithful, and in doing so, we will be rewarded. And if we don't, we will be wiped from the face of the earth. But even more than that, I started reading this, and it was like I said, a history of second chances, or a history of do-overs. God was unhappy with what he had created in man, but he didn't completely obliterate it. He wanted to give us a second chance. He gave us a do-over. So on to the 7th chapter. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean, by 2, the male and his female. The fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark, because of the waters of the flood. Of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls and of everything that creepeth upon the earth, there went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, in the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day entered Noah, and Shem, and Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. The waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So like I said, I think typically The 6th and then the 7th chapters, they're read in the sense of the message of obedience and faithfulness. In public speaking courses, and I think one of my teachers in law school used to say it too, that when you're trying to deliver a message or give any sort of speech, a good technique is to, as they say, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. That's exactly the way that these chapters of Genesis are written. This is exactly the way that God delivered this message. He told Noah what was going to happen. He told Noah what he needed to do. And then it happened. That's the 7th chapter. And then moving on to the 8th chapter, we move into God telling him what he said he was going to tell him. In the 8th chapter, and God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. And the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark, which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Also, he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark. For the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her in unto him into the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days. And again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came in to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dry. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth on the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, after their kinds went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour. The Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living, as I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh within the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. There's a famous painting that you're probably all familiar with. George Washington crossing the Delaware. And not many people know about it, but there are actually some very famous and important words that were spoken during that scene. Like I said, I think you're probably all familiar with it. It's a famous oil painting of Washington standing on the bow of the boat. The Revolutionary soldiers, they're crossing the Delaware. I'm a little fuzzy on my history, but I think what's about to happen, it's when they're taking back the capital at that point. But like I said, there were very famous words that were spoken just before that moment that's captured in that scene. And those words were this: get in the boat. You can thank my dad for that joke. But really, that's God's message to all of us, repeatedly, over and over and over. He told Noah to build this giant boat, to house all the living things. He told him that he was chosen. He gave him orders, very specific instructions to follow, and he told him what would happen if he did so. And then it happened. Like I said, throughout the entire Bible, throughout the entire history of mankind, this message is repeated over and over and over. Go back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter, in the 15th verse. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden, to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. God placed man in the Garden of Eden, paradise. He had everything at his disposal, and he simply said, follow this one rule. And what did Adam do? What did we, mankind, do? We disobeyed it. And what happened? We were banished from the garden. We were punished. God told us what would happen, and then it happened. But he didn't smite man from the face of the earth. He gave us a second chance. He said, you did what I told you not to do, and there are consequences for that. So I'm going to kick you out of paradise. I'm going to force you to live a life of toiling and suffering. But he didn't abandon us. He didn't destroy us. So in the 21st chapter of the 21st verse of the 3rd chapter, unto Adam also, unto his wife, did the Lord God make coats of skins, and clothed them. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to keep the way of the tree of life. Threw them out of the garden, but first he clothed them. And then what happened? The 4th chapter of Genesis. The 6th and the 7th verses. There's just a couple of lines leading up to what we know happened between Cain and Abel. But for me, what those verses illustrate, the 6th and the 7th verse and the 4th chapter, is that God didn't abandon mankind. Even though we were cast out of the garden, sent to toil, He was still communicating with us. He was still teaching us. He was still listening to our prayers. In the 6th verse, the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? Why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Or a more modern translation of that, and the Lord said to Cain, Why are you so angry? And why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, Sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. And this is in response to Cain being angry with God for not being pleased with his offering as opposed to Abel's. So what happens? God's given man a second chance. He's thrown us out of the garden. He's punished us, but he's still teaching us. He's still speaking to us. He's still listening to us, answering our prayers. And what does man do? In the 8th chapter, Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. The Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not, am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. God told him what would happen if he sinned. When he sinned, he committed murder. Then it happened. He was punished. Then man's response after the fact was, I can't handle this punishment. It's too much for me to bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And again, the more modern translation of that, so the Lord said to him, Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord appointed a sign for Cain, so that no one finding him would slay him. He punished him. He sent him to be a vagabond and a fugitive throughout the world. But he kept his hand upon him.
Amen.
He cried out and he said, God, this punishment is more than I can bear. And God didn't take away his punishment. But God did place a mark upon him to protect him. And he said, you will suffer the wrath of your own decisions, what you did, your sin, because you have free will. I created you to be able to do what you will. You chose to murder. You will suffer punishment. You will walk the earth as a vagabond and a fugitive. You will suffer my wrath. But I will keep my hand upon you, and I will protect you.
Yeah, promise.
It's a loving Father. He disciplines, but he does not abandon. He did not destroy him. Generations pass in this fashion. Mankind in the 5th chapter, I think it is, the 5th chapter of Genesis, it goes through 10 generations. 10 generations, life goes on like this for mankind. And then in the 7th and 8th verse of the 6th chapter, as we read, the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. It has broken my heart that I have created you, because you have disappointed me. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
Amen.
10 generations of sin, of continuing in the corruption and the behavior of humans. Just like Cain, and just like Adam before him.
Yes.
And finally, God had enough. He said, this was a mistake. I'm going to wipe the slate clean. But I am not through. So in the 20th verse of the 8th chapter, following this destruction of the earth, but saving Noah and his descendants, and a selection of animals, what was Noah's response? He didn't do as Cain did and say, this is more than I can bear. He got off the boat and he built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. Or again in the modern translation, the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on the account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. We can't help it. We are evil from the get-go. God created us of free will, and because of that, we are sinners, we are imperfect, we are corrupt. We will continue to fail. We will continue to sin. We will continue to disappoint God. And God knows that. But he said, taking that into consideration, I'm well aware, I've learned about my creation over these thousands of years, these eons. It's been made clear to me that you are going to break my heart as your creator. You are going to disappoint me. You are going to continue to fail before me. But I will continue to spare you.
Yes, amen.
Noah builds an altar and presents an offering. And say thank you for being spared. He gave thanks. And in response, God gave mankind a covenant. And he said, as long as the earth is here, as long as there is day and night, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. He promised never to destroy mankind with a flood again. And then what did we do? Well, immediately after that, in the 20th chapter of the 20th verse of the 9th chapter, Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken. So even Noah, in this perfect example of him offering thanks for being saved, shortly thereafter, And I've read about Noah's drunkenness a few different ways, whether or not we're supposed to view it as a sin, or more what the rest of that chapter goes on to is more about how his sons deal with it, and the curse of Canaan. But Noah was human. Noah failed. And what happened after that? Generations of mankind continuing to fail. God saved us. God chose us as the descendants of Noah. And after that, in the Tower of Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah, Babylon, centuries of mankind spitting in the face of God,
Yes.
Yeah.
continuing to sin in the flesh. And it just repeats. In the story of Lot with Sodom and Gomorrah, it's mankind sins, God punishes us, He sets aside and protects the righteous. Sin, punishment, second chances, over and over and over, the entire history of mankind.